Hello, my name is Stephen Alf and welcome back to Alf Books. Today we are looking at the books that I read in the month of December last year. So, let's get down to it. First book I read in the month of December was The Infinity Cage by Alex Scarrow. This is the last book in the Time Riders series and it was really fun to read. I really enjoyed how he finished off the series because I didn't know where he was going at the end of the previous book, because when I got to the end of that one just before, I was like, how is he going to end this in one book? Because I knew he said there's only going to be 9 books, and so even when I was at the 7th book I was like, okay, so there's 2 more books left. When I then read the 8th book I was like, there's so much left, how is he going to do this? And the way he does it is very, very interesting, and I quite enjoyed it. And I definitely have to say, it was not what I expected at all. And yeah, I like when an author can surprise me and brings out something that I'm just like, well done, you surprised me there. I was not expecting that, but in a good way. It was in a good way. You know how you can be surprised. You're like, no, why are you, no, oh, what are you doing? You know, that kind of, it wasn't that. The next book was Mouse 2, so I read the second part of the graphic memoir by Arch Spiegelman, and I really enjoyed it in terms of how it's brought across again. Like the first one, it's not something obviously you read to laugh. Obviously, it is a memoir. It is about the Second World War. It is heavy in terms of history and in terms of knowledge, and it's very interesting how they bring it across, and I find that the author has done a brilliant job, as I'm pretty sure I mentioned when I talked about the first one. Brilliant job of bringing across the emotional side of it from his perspective and his father's perspective, as well as how and why things unfolded the way they did. And it's very interesting, and I recommend to read it because there are a lot of things about the Second World War out there, and it's hard to pick what to read. Some things are really heavy to read, and for someone who wants to have an idea and hasn't already dived into it, or even someone who has already dived into it, it is something that is easier to pick up and read than a lot of other books that you might find on the Second World War, so I will leave that with you. The next 3 books actually were all written by J.K. Rowling, which are all related to the world of Harry Potter, the Tales of Beedle the Bard, Quidditch Through the Ages, and Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. They are very interesting, and I really enjoyed reading them. My favourite was probably Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, because it goes over all the different beasts, and it just reminds you of different parts of the book when you get to some of them, and you're just like, I remember a part of the book where this happened, and this beast was involved, and that was a brilliant part. And it was really fun to read them, and nice to dive into the Harry Potter universe again. Next, I read To Build a Fire by Jack London. This is a short story. I didn't know exactly what to think when I read it, because it's kind of one of those stories where you're reading it and you're just like, is this just gonna end up the way it seems to be going? And yes, in this case it did. It's kind of, you're like, really? Okay. Is this gonna happen? And it does. And you're just like, nah, that wasn't very surprising. And, I mean, sometimes that's good, as I mentioned in the November wrap-up, Clariel, you kind of know where it's going, but it's not in a bad way. Like, when you get there, you're like, okay, this is what happened. But in this case, it's just like, well, you could have surprised me a bit, though. So, yeah. Next I read The Revenge of Seven by Pittacus Lore. This is the 5th book in the Lorien Legacy series. It was really good, I really enjoyed it. I liked the way it just continued in kind of the story obviously from where the previous book finished, and it kind of pulls you into it more, and you're like, I want to find out more. Why did he stop where he stopped? I have to wait another year. Well, not a year anymore. A few months. I can't remember exactly when it comes out. But yeah, a few more months, and then the book will be out, and then, I hope. And I can't wait for the next one, because the way it's done is that you're waiting for something to happen, and then you arrive at the end of the book, and cliffhangers that you just can't get over them. They're just amazingly well done, and you're just like, I want to know what will happen next. Tell me. So yeah, definitely very, very well written. I really enjoyed it, and I can't wait for the next one, as I have maybe just mentioned a few times now. The next two books that I read were by H.G. Wells. So the first one was The Invisible Man, so I really enjoyed this one. I really like H.G. Wells, so when I first read The Time Machine by H.G. Wells, I really got into his writing style. I really enjoyed it. I liked the way his perspective kind of was of a narrator that was being told the story of the main character, and it was really interesting the way that was done. And then how he brings that across kind of to the other books that he's written, the same kind of writing style and character perspective. I really enjoyed it. And so The Invisible Man, the main character is a lunatic, but it's brilliant. I really enjoyed it. And the other one that I read, so The Stolen Body, is interesting in a different way. It's not exactly what you'd expect, and well, when it does get to the end of the book, you're just like, oh, that's where it was going, that's interesting. I quite enjoyed that as well. And it seemed quite original to me compared to other books I'd read over the past month or two. Some of the books were less original, as you probably remember from what I said about some of the books I read in November. And so it was a great way to finish the year of 2014. One of my favourite authors to finish off the year. And yeah, so that was 2014. Incredible, so let's look at some stats for the year, just to wrap it all up. That was another 9 books for this month, which brings me to a total of 104 books, which was my goal. But at the beginning of the year, my original goal was 52, so I doubled on my goal in terms of books, which really, really made me happy. When I arrived at the end of the year, I was like, yes! This is crazy, I've never read so many books before in a year. But it was really fun to do, and set myself a goal that seemed completely out of reach. I thought 52 was out of reach, and I proved myself wrong. So, yeah. And let's see the number of pages I read in the year of 2014. So, after having added up all the pages together, I realised that there was a small mistake with what I found compared to the number that's given on Goodreads. Now, for those who don't know, on Goodreads there's a section when you go to your books, which is like stats, and when you click on it you can see how many books you read when you've entered them for a specific year or a date when you finish reading it. It'll give you by year how many books you finished that year, and then if you go to the next tab, how many pages you read in those years. And there's also the last one, which is quite interesting, which is kind of a graph with the date you read it and the date it was published. So you'll have dots kind of dancing around for the year you read things. So I know that when I studied literature for the French baccalaureate, I had loads of older books that I read for school, which kind of dotted at that specific time. And then there's all the other books that I would have read which are more recent, which are all at the top of the graph. And it's really well done and very interesting, and if you are interested in looking at this kind of stuff, you can find it there. I do find the thing with the pages quite interesting, so let me know what you think of that. I just thought it'd be fun to add that to the page. The difference between how many pages I had and, well, Goodreads is giving me is roughly 60 more than what I calculated, so that's fine with me. Which brings me to a total of 24,074 pages, which is ludicrous. Could have reached 25,000, what did I do, right? Ah well. I hope you enjoyed this series. Let me know. I will be doing my Race to New Year series again, and it's going to be fun, I guess, I hope. at the end of this year. I'll leave you there. I really hope you enjoyed this video. See you next week. Bye.